I just want to say a little brief of some reflections that I have with regards to the recently concluded elections in the Senegal, and reflections on some key issues or some key areas, though I think our country should learn from in order for us to find meaningful progress as a country and as a people. Few things that we need to look at in terms of what Senegal has done and achieved. They got independent before us in 1960, and but then the difference in terms of the number of presidency is not that much, just one. However, there is marked difference between the rate of our development and that of theirs, even when their own country is bigger than ours. But then there are some things that we need to look at as a people in order to have a justified comparison of how we supposed to move forward in terms of developing our country and making the lives of our people better and livelihood much better. First and foremost, it's going to be very honest for Gambians to accept the fact that on the perspective of awareness, on the perspective of knowledge, Senegal is way ahead of us. Why? Because they embrace conventional education and as well as spiritual knowledge more than us. Like the level of prevalence is way higher than ours. It's not about spiritual knowledge. It's not about conventional knowledge. They're way ahead of us in both ends. And this contributes a lot to the progress that Senegal is making. When we take an example of spiritual knowledge, for example, they have got the prevalence to a stage that they've got some listening ears that when say this Sering or whatever says this, they will have to listen. They will have to listen. And that also contributes to the growth of the country, to the unity of the country. And when you talk about conventional knowledge, they've got generations of educated people, generations. You could count a number of families in Senegal that have got 4 generations of university graduates. When you talk about 3 generations, plenty of it. 4 generations of university graduate, a great-grandfather being a graduate of university, a grandfather being a graduate of university, a father being a graduate of university, a daughter or a son being a graduate of a university. You got a number of that in Senegal. And that contributes to the awareness of the people of Senegal. In the Gambia, that's very minimal. You don't even have, it's a handful that you could count 4 generations of university graduates. Even 3 generations is very, very minute. And that is a contributing factor to the difference, marked disparity between awareness in the Gambia and Senegal. And this I always, as always, give blame to the First Republic. Give blame to the First Republic. If we have had a university in 1980 or in 1990 or in 1985 or even in 1970, even in 1970, we could have a university. Like the way the university extension program started, we could have a university like that. In 1970, for example, if we had, had a university in 1970 or 75 or 80 or even 1990, we would have been counting the same level of awareness like Senegal and also be counting the same number of past presidents like Senegal. You see, an informed society is a society that is free. An informed society is a society that is free. The reason why Gambia was able to change a president through the ballot box is because of the knowledge. It's because of people being educated. That's why Gambia was able to change president through the ballot box. Because of the University of the Gambia, that's why the Gambia was able to change presidency through the ballot box. If we had university in 1990, in 1980, in 1985, 75, 70, you would have got 2 presidents before 1994, if not more. You would have got that because our people would have been enlightened. But back then, elections were like, to many people, there are some that pray 5 daily times. 5 times a day. They pray 5 times a day as a duty to the Almighty. They pray 5 times a day as a duty to the Almighty. But there are also others that pray 5 times a day as a fulfillment. Like, I have just completed. Let me just get this completed. There is difference between praying as a duty to the Almighty and praying because it is a burden on you, so you have to get it completed. Say, for example, someone lends you $50. Paying that person the $50 back as a responsibility that you owe to that person, and paying that person $50 back because he or she is asking you about the $50 are 2 different things. They're 2 different things. So there are people that pray 5 times a day because they see it as a burden, as something that they have to just complete and be free. But there are people that pray 5 times a day because they see it as a duty upon them, as a duty upon them, as a responsibility that they owe to the Almighty. So they pray 5 times a day. So back then, in the First Republic, there are people who were voting in elections because it is a civic responsibility and a responsibility that they owe as citizens to pursue betterment. And so they were doing that because they think that is the way they could change government. However, there were also many who were voting because they see it as election wato le sita. Quartier fayo le sita. Mbita aldro na quartier fayo nambandi. Mbita aldro na quartier fayo nambandi. These are 2 different people. So majority were doing that. That is just going to go and vote because we just have to vote. It's time for voting. We just have to vote. That is why we couldn't change government for 30 years. But if there was awareness then, and then the people know that this is a civic duty, a civic responsibility, that, hey, our people have been carrying table for 20 years, that we have to get government responsible for, a stop to that. That our people have been watching television, RTS. We cannot have our own television. We have to punish government for not getting us that. That our people live with electricity program for a number of hours. Beyond that hours, we don't have electricity. We have to punish government for that. If our people had that awareness, then we would have been counting 4 presidents of the 5th president like Senegal. But because they didn't have that awareness, and politics was not seen as a civic responsibility or a civic duty that each and every citizen has to be involved in. It was not seen that way. And that is why we have the government stay that long. And that is also the reason why we have the Second Republic stay that long, because the awareness was not that to that level compared to the way it is now. Compared to the way it is now. The awareness we got now could have been in 1980, could have been in 1985, could have been in 1970 or 75. It could have been. And the Gambia would have been very developed. The roads that we want to see developed now could have been developed in 1990. They could have been developed in 1990 if we had got the awareness. And this is something we have to reflect on. That it's like we will envy Senegal. We will want to be like Senegal. But they are ahead of us because of that. That as number one. They are ahead of us because of that as number one. They gain awareness at a very early stage. And in fact, part of the reason why Senegal is still restricted or is still stalled is because of the effect of France, of the neo-colonial effect of France on Senegal and Francophone Africa. That is the reason. If not, Senegal would have been very, very developed, would have been way developed. It's because of the neo-colonial effect. The development of Senegal, impressive development of Senegal, started with Ablaye. The road network and all that started with Ablaye and became amplified by Macky Sall. Ablaye will travel, see something that he likes, and see that when I have to get this to Senegal. Senegal would have been very developed if it was not for the neo-colonialism of France that continues to affect Senegal. See Ivory Coast. See how developed Ivory Coast is. Senegal would have been way more developed than Ivory Coast. And Ivory Coast is developed because they blessed with natural resource. Ivory Coast is a high cocoa producing country. A high cocoa producing country. Do you know, I'll tell you this. Part of the reason why France conspired to get Laurent Gbagbo out and install Alassane Ouattara is because Laurent Gbagbo refused to give cocoa trading contracts to French companies. That's why they instigated the removal of Gbagbo. And the capture of Gbagbo was aided by French soldiers. The capture of Gbagbo was aided by French soldiers. And you need to understand. You see, that's why I started with awareness. You need to understand. Neocolonialism is much more worse than colonialism. Neocolonialism is much more worse than colonialism. And that's what is affecting Francophone Africa. That's why they're not that very rapid in development, even though they are developed. So number one is awareness. We were late to develop or to acquire that awareness. Very late. We were made to be content with the little that we are available or made available to us. That's why I have a problem when people talk about Jawara is the best president. He is not. He is not the best president. When you talk about human rights is not only about physical abuse. That's not just human rights. That's not just the limitation of human rights. Human rights is not abuse, is not limited to only physical abuse. No. Human rights goes to include indirect abuse of people and making them, denying them the ability to thrive as citizens, as communities. That's abuse of human rights. People supposed to have electricity supply for their livelihood. They don't have that. That is an abuse of human rights. People supposed to have quality health care delivery systems. They don't have that. That is an abuse of human rights. People supposed to have quality education. They don't have that. That is abuse of human rights. That's abuse of human rights. They're supposed to have quality markets, conducive places to trade. They don't have that. That is abuse of human rights. It's abuse of human rights. Human rights is a status in which people have the social determinants of their, not just health, but, socio-economic livelihood is available to them. That it is available to them. Human rights goes beyond physical abuse. It goes to include ability for the people to have all that they need to live fulfilling lives. To live fulfilling lives. So if you do not provide that to them, it is an abuse of right. Because those people are paying taxes for the provision of those services. They're paying taxes for their kids or their children to be educated, for their children to have a conducive learning environment. They are paying taxes for their women to deliver in conducive health facilities, in facilities that are of quality. They pay taxes for them to, ply roads that are of quality and increase, their productivity by minimizing the delay in, communication. So if they talk about Jawara being the best president, that is deceitful. That's deceitful. He is not. He is not. And I'm not also saying that he didn't do anything. No, but he's not the best president. He's not the best president because part of the reasons why we are still where we are today is because he didn't lay down the foundation that we are supposed to have had, like Leopold Sédar Senghor did for Senegal to be where they are today. He didn't do that. He didn't do that. He failed to lay the foundation that would have provided the awareness that Senegal have for us to get that. He didn't. Only a handful were privileged to have university education. Only a handful. Having a higher teacher certificate was equivalent, or it was treated as having a bachelor's degree. It was treated like having a bachelor's degree. In fact, going to Gambia College was celebrated. Having admission to Gambia College was an accomplishment that is celebrated then. That tells you how, Senegal is ahead of us. How Senegal is ahead of us. So awareness is number one reason why Senegal is way ahead of us. And number two reason is patriotism. Patriotism. One good thing that Senegal inherited from France is the idea of nationalism. The idea of nationalism. They inherited that from Senegal. In France, they talk about equality, fraternity, and what is the third one? That speaks about nationalism. It speaks about nationalism, fraternity. They talk about equality, fraternity. It speaks about nationalism, that you have to see country. You have to see country. You have to see society. You are from Lamen. You have to see Lamen before yourself. You are from Yundum. You have to see Yundum before yourself. You are from, Serekunda. You have to see Serekunda before yourself. Nationalism. That's where patriotism is born. You have to think. You have to think that when the Gambia gets a factory and employs 50 people, the development will not just be for me, but will be a development for 50 people. Compared to when I have a factory, the development will be mine. When I have a factory, the development will be mine and not 50 people. But when the Gambia has a factory, the development will be 50 plus people and not just me. That's nationalism. The pursuit of national growth. And this is number two thing that Senegal is ahead of us. That is number two thing that Senegal is ahead of us. They develop national growth, nationality. We talk about, voting Basiru Jomai Faye. It's about nationality, nationalism, patriotism. They realize that what had happened to Usman Sonko and what had happened to President-elect Basiru Jomai Faye and many others is an assault on nationalism. It's an assault on nationalism. And the excess that, Maki did is an assault on nationalism. And they thought that the country is more than them. We saw videos of spiritual leaders, of community leaders, speaking about the country. Ñun Senegal mo ñu ñor. Senegal mo ñu ñor. That is nationalism. They're talking about Senegal. Nekut, suñ kër, suñ waa kër, wala, suñ waa dëkka mo ñu ñor. Senegal mo ñu ñor. Nationalism, they talk about Senegal. Ñun Senegal lañ xam, xamuñ États-Unis, xamuñ, CEDEAO, xamuñ, Union Afrique. Senegal lañ xam, te Senegal lañ am. Senegal mo ñu ñor. Nationality. Even the people that haven't gone to conventional school had that instilled in them. Nationality, civic knowledge, civic awareness that the country, the development of the country is a collective development of everyone. And Senegal is ahead of us because of that. Number two, they are ahead of us because of that. When issues happen in the Gambia, people look at what is the surname of that person. Nakala Santa. Akontongo nyadi. Abuta mintulto. Abuta mintulto. Akontongo. What happened to, Usman Sonko, to Basiru Jomai Faye, and many others, if it was the Gambia, they will not win. They're not going to win. If it was the Gambia, they're not going to win. The victory of Basiru Jomai Faye is not victory of Serir. It's not victory of Jola. It's not victory of Wolof. It's not victory of, Fula. It's not victory of whoever. It's the victory of Senegal. It's the victory of Senegal. The victory of Senegal because of seeing nation before self. Senegal moo leen ñor. Senegal moo leen ñor. Moo tax ñu ne didit. Arrêtez Macky Sall. Arrêtez Macky Sall. Senegal moo ñu ñor. So they are ahead of us in terms of awareness. They are ahead of us in terms of civic knowledge, as in seeing country before self. Seeing country before self. You could be educated and lack the civic knowledge. You could be educated and lack the idea of patriotism. The idea of patriotism. I cannot take people to Gambia, for example. I cannot take people to the Gambia, for example, and claim that I am coming to help Gambians, when in essence, I am trying to help myself. Say, for example, I come and, build, a hospital or whatever, or come and do a research and say that I am helping Gambian by providing them with service. When in essence, I brought that there because I want to do a research and put at a feather to my own wing. I'm not necessarily supporting Gambia or helping the Gambia. Not necessarily supporting the Gambia or helping the Gambia. But only through nationalism, seeing nation before anything else, that we will, new jital Gambia than every other thing. So Gambia am a 10 factory. The Gambia, will develop, and the development will be all of us. It will be for all of us. So Gambia amee 10 factory, that development dafa nekk pour ñun ñëpp. Dan tey kii ubbi radio station, keneen ubbi radio station, kii ubbi ma huloo kii nii rek ma ubbi suma bos. Huloo kii nii rek ubbi suma bos. That doesn't take development. It doesn't develop the country. Just like these folks that have a problem, Malagan folks that have a problem, instead of pursuing agreement to resolve the conflict, the other one quit Malagan and went and opened another one to compete each other. How are we going to grow? How are we going to grow? The America that you envy, two people could form a corporation. Two people could form a corporation for decades. A corporation for decades. But that is not what is happening in the Gambia. Everybody wants to develop himself. And that is not what brings development. An island cannot grow to become an ocean. No. An island cannot grow to become an ocean. That's not possible. But you could, make an ocean, develop and embrace many other small islands and provide water to it. Provide water to it. So number one, Senegal, the victory of Senegal today is not just a victory that came from the skies like that. Is what was like Yamin tutu kabirin kununko ba wale falinta. So they are ahead of us in terms of awareness. They started the project long ago. And number two, they have instilled in many of their citizens the idea of nationalism. Patriotism. That they have to be patriotic citizens. They owe to Senegal before themselves. They owe to Senegal before even themselves. And that's why you see their citizens go back to put Sadio Mane doing it. The owner of what is the football academy where Sadio Mane graduated from. The owner of the football academy went to develop his country. He provided that opportunity for Senegal to, reproduce more professionals. And Sadio Mane has copied that by buying a club in France and having a football academy in Senegal that will create the opportunity that talents from Senegal will have the opportunity to play in France and develop. So it's not about himself. It's about Senegal. Senegal mole ñor. And this is the thing I keep seeing every time about the Gambia. It's the thing that I keep seeing every time about the Gambia. Balama taba etas. Balama taba etas. Ne dama am etas. Wa balama jina 10 moto. Ne dama am ay moto. Let me build something. A community project that will help people. That will get people into balama dikasi etas. Ma hamne munna am na fumay tida. Fumay, tida ma comfortable. Ma, develop a community project. Put nini tamid muna am lo hamne dañu am fu ñew tida ñu jigéñ suñ mënuté nek the same situation like me ñu jigéñ fu ma nek. Ñu mëna jigéñ the situation that I am in. Su nekkon ne Gambian bi yépp dañ doon def lolu. I always give commendation to big sister Mam Yasin Sar. If many Gambians emulate that lady, we would be very far. If many Gambians emulate that lady, we will be very, very far. Starfish is reproducing a lot of responsible young Gambian ladies. Starfish is reproducing a lot of young, responsible Gambian ladies. Everybody is clapping for Sadio Balde. Everybody is proud for Sadio Balde. That is because Mam Yasin Sar thought of that idea of instilling independence in young ladies, making them responsible, giving them a skill that they will become responsible and not dependent on husbands or on men or on government. And we could all do that. It doesn't require much money. It doesn't require much money. It doesn't. For example, Mohammed Jah could build a community center and call it the Dream Center. The Dream Center. If he builds Q City to get money, he could build a community center and call it the Dream Center. The Dream Center where young Gambians will go and learn the skill, be it public speaking skill, be it tailoring, be it, carpentry, be it welding, be it, how will I call it? Photography. A community project in which you instill skills on people. I know of QuantumNet. Yes, QuantumNet. People learn computer skills there. But how many people are going to get that, how will I call it? Independence from the path of learning computer and all the stuff. But projects like Starfish International, for example, where young ladies develop the skill set and develop that independence in thought of being able to pursue this path and get something out of it. That I don't have to go to university to become economically independent. Going to university will be an added advantage, but I could still be economically independent when I have a skill set. Like this lady. Like this young lady, Balde, Miss Sadio Balde, who is making name for herself and country with a camera. And through the support of Starfish International. And many other young ladies went through that. So that is, what Senegal has got in abundance. That's what Senegal has got in abundance. One of the candidates, Anta Ababakar, Ngom, she has one of the leading poultry farm, not in Senegal, in Africa. In Africa. And she is employing many, many, many Senegalese. Many, many, many Senegalese. My good friend Chon Yang has got a very big agro business that is employing many, many, many Senegalese. And has got a tailoring, farm that is training many Senegalese to become independent, economically independent, be very skillful tailors. And he came to the US, get what he wanted. He went to Senegal to provide that opportunity because of nationalism. Nationalism. He's making wealth for himself and at the same time creating an opportunity for people to grow, Senegalese citizens to grow. And that could only happen when you instill in the people the idea of nationalism. That when the country develops, all of us are going to develop. All of us are going to develop. And it doesn't take much to do that. It doesn't take much to do that. You don't have to be a millionaire to create an opportunity, to create a pathway for people to develop. You don't have to. You don't need that. You could do a huge thing with $5,000. You could. You could do that. You hold a degree or knowledge or skill expertise in whatever it is. You create an opportunity like my brother Mohammed Kanyi and his team are doing, teaching people public speaking skills, teaching people the art of public speaking. That is development. That is development. You're creating opportunities for them to be able to articulate themselves. When such people get voted into office and go to the National Assembly, they could make compelling arguments that people will be convinced that this person is speaking something that I should listen to. He's saying something that I should listen to, because the argument he or she is making is very, very attractive. Not scattered arguments. Not scattered arguments. When I listen to the National Assembly member for Fladu, I think, GB, speaking, was scattered, picking word from this, word. That's not how public speaking is, especially at the chambers, National Assembly chambers. Folks in there should be very, very good speakers. People that will be able to convince their colleagues in voting for whatever they are, pushing forward. But that is not happening because we do not create those opportunities. We do not create those opportunities. So Senegal has got the awareness because their people have had the knowledge, not just conventional knowledge, but spiritual knowledge as well. They get informed spiritually and conventionally. They had instilled in them the idea of nationalism, that you have to see Senegal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Senegalese you count. 2 or 3 of them will talk about Senegal Monunyor. Senegal Monunyor. Senegal Monunyor. How many Gambians will you count that will say that? Gambia Monunyor. And in fact, those that will say it are saying it superficially. You cannot talk about Gambia first. You talk about Gambia first, and you buy something that is seized for the country at a price that is way low. You cannot do that, like Nyanjai. Talking about Gambia first, you buy a car that was $1 million, if not close to $1 million, for 100,000. That is not Gambia first. That is not Gambia first. That is not Gambia first. Because you're supposed to know, if it is Gambia first, you're supposed to know that the properties that have been seized, or the assets that have been seized, when auctioned, the money is going to Gambia coffers, the Gambia government coffers, and it's supposed to benefit Gambians. So if you know the value of this car, for example, or the value of this house, for example, is $1 million, and you know buying that property means the money is going to Gambia government, coffers, and for the Gambian people, you will buy that property at the value of that property because you believe in Gambia Monunyor. Why you nga hamne loy jina alel boy jina non soko jinde halis bi dafa dem si kesi nguur gi nga war ko jinda si lum wara jar jëndu loko si lolu jinna ko si lo xamne dafa tuti be pare nga naan ne Gambia mo la ñor. Gambia ñorut la. Did it? You're not talking about Gambia first. You don't mean Gambia first. And that's the problem of our country. And that is the difference between Senegal and our country. I am not saying there is perfection in Senegal. There is no perfection in anywhere in this world. But you have got a lot of people who could, restrain the urges and look at Senegal. Many of them. And we have that limitation in the Gambia. People are competing on getting 10-story buildings. Competing on getting 5 cars. 5 cars that you'll park at the house. When you could have got one and use the money to build a community project where you live, benefit your people, minimize the dependency on you, and at the same time grow. But you don't do that. You don't do that. You want to display wealth. You want to display wealth and complain about dependency. To display wealth and complain about dependency. Senegal has a lot of people who have generational wealth because they know how to invest that what they have to create generational wealth. And even when they move on, their kids and their great-grandkids will continue to develop that project. That's how America developed. That's how the West developed. But in the Gambia, we don't invest on generational wealth. We invest in individual wealth. And that's why when the person, dies, it becomes destroyed. It becomes abused. And nothing happens. Number 3, Senegal is ahead of us because they believe in ideology. They believe in ideology. Senegalese People's Democratic Party, PDS, a socialist party, whatever, have an ideology. They have an ideology. And the ideology of that party has gone or has been transmitted from a generation to another generation. The party of, Ablaiwat has, been transmitted. The ideology has been transmitted from a generation to the other to another. There are kids who are born and have reached the age of voting, who were born in households that grew up with the ideology of Ablaiwat's party. And they live with that ideology. Like the past thief that, came up. There are kids that will grow with that ideology and will move on, even when Sonko and Fai retire from politics. The ideology will grow. They have that. In the Gambia, we don't have that. This is the reason why the PPP is almost dead. This is the reason why the APRC is almost dead. This is the reason why the UDP is heading to death. When Uncle Dabo exits, it's going to be dead. When Barrow exists, NPP will be dead because of lack of ideology. The same with PDYS. If Honorable Halifa Saleh and Sidia Jata exit, it will go through the same path. It is going to go through the same path because we don't have ideology. We don't believe in ideology. We don't believe in ideology. That is why Citizen Alliance is short-lived. The party is dead already. They're not going to agree with that, but that is the truth. The party is dead. The party is dead. Any political party whose leadership becomes a subset of another party, the party is dead. That party is dead. Citizen Alliance is dead. And the reason I said this at the formation of the party was formed on the quest of being part of the dinner table. Not all of them have that thought, but majority of the constituents of the party had the ideology of being part of the dinner table. Being part of the dinner table doesn't necessarily mean being part of Barrow. It was formed because they thought if Barrow could be president, why not us? Why not us? If Barrow could be president, why not us? And that means they want to be part of the dinner table. And they made it an elite party that we will be educated people. We are educated enough to be, to be in cabinet or to run government. If Barrow could run government, that means they formed the party not on ideology, but on the quest of being part of the dinner table. That's why it is dead. That's why the party is dead. That's why the party is into an alliance. That's why the party is into an alliance. And that's why the PPP is being defeated, because they quit the ideology of the party. The APRC the same. They quit the ideology of the party to become, how will I call it, chasers of the dinner table. And any party that has that kind of thought is a short-lived party. So for the Gambia, To be like Senegal is to have an ideology. The ANC is still existing in Senegal, in South Africa, because there is an ideology. The ANC was founded on an ideology. That's why it is still there. The ZANU party in Zimbabwe was founded on an ideology. That's why it is still there. That's why it is still there. In Ghana, the same. In the United States, you have the Democrat and the GOP, because they founded on ideologies. That's why they still existing. The Labour and the Conservatives in the UK. Political parties are formed on ideologies. They formed on ideologies. An ideology is a thought process, a thought that you think you're going to grow to achieve an outcome. But if you form a political party on the basis of the quest of being in government, or the quest of being president, or the quest of having a fulfillment, the party will be short-lived. The moment the party is no more having the honey to live on, the party dies. You see, the EFF in South Africa has growth because there is an ideology that formed the party. And that ideology is transmitted from one generation to the other. And is the thing that the Gambia should embrace. We are supposed to have a political party that is formed on an ideology. And the ideology will be bought by people. It doesn't matter whether you've gone to school or you have to conventional school or not. An ideology is a thought. Now we form a party on the basis that we want to ensure that each and every Gambian citizen is informed about the responsibilities that he or she has or owes to the nation. And you don't have to be in government. You don't have to be a public servant. You don't have to be a civil servant to fulfill that responsibility. For example, say tax, for example. That we have to form a political party that will make our people, whoever belongs to the party, will know that he or she has a responsibility, a duty on state to ensure that he does A, B, C, Y, Z. So whoever believes in that ideology doesn't need to be in government to fulfill that responsibility. Doesn't need to be in government to pursue that, that need, that desire. But if you form a political party on the basis of being or wanting to be in government because Barrow is president and has no bachelor's degree, you're going to fail. Because you will not have the endurance to, bear the difficulties, the pain and everything. You won't have that. You won't have the resilience. Because your quest or the foundation on which the party was formed was not strong. Sonko and Basiru and all the Pasty folks founded the party on the idea of patriotism. That they see this as not what is good, as something that is not good, and we want to change that. The way we could change this is by getting leadership. That when we get leadership, we will be able to change this. And even if we do not have the leadership, we will still be pursuing that project of making the change happen. And that's why it is easy, or was easy, for Basiru to be flag bearer without push and pull, without one exiting the party and forming another party. We see in the Gambia in 2021, because Barrow stepped in for Uncle Dabo, and Uncle Dabo came back, he has to leave, and Uncle Dabo picks, for Uncle Dabo to pick up. That didn't happen. It brought about NPP. If Senegal or the Sonko and Basiru were the situation of the Gambia. Sonko would have stand on his own, and Faye would have stand on his own, and Amadou Ba would have won. Sonko would have said, I am free now and eligible, so I'm going to, contest, which Macky Sall would have loved. But that didn't happen. But that didn't happen because they have an ideology. They have an ideology and have set principles. They had set principles that they were pursuing. So whoever is there has knowledge that this is what we are up to. But that is not in the Gambia. People are forming political parties because they want to be president. They form political parties because they want to be president. They contest in elections because they want to be president. Like this guy, Boy Banjul, Esafal. Like Esafal. He wants to be president because he thinks that he has a master's degree. He's a lawyer. He worked international. If Barrow, that has no degree, could be president, why not me? Why not me? That's why he wants to be president. That's why he wants to be president. If it was about doing better for the Gambia, he has the wealth to do that. He has the wealth to do that. And by doing that, he could get the opportunity to contest for presidency. But did it? It's because Barrow is president, who has no degree. So I too, that has a degree, should be president. Should be president. And that's why he failed. That's why he failed. So Senegal is ahead of us because majority of their citizens believe in ideology and work towards that. That's why Basiru and Sonko were able to get a lot of youths because they embraced the ideology that was sold to them. So that's number 3, why Senegal is ahead of us. And number 4, no one will say that there is no issue of tribalism in Senegal. It is there. It is there. There is tribalism in Senegal, but it's worse in the Gambia. There is tribalism in Senegal, but it's worse in the Gambia. Senegalese citizens realize that the issue of Macky Sall and the path that their country was following, has made their living and their being more at risk than the pursuit of tribe. They knew that the path that the country was following and what was at stake was much more important, much more necessary, much more a priority than the pursuit of tribe. They knew that. They knew that. That's why they went in for Jomai fight to a demonstration of not even allowing a second round voting, that they're going to get the work done first round and finish. In the Gambia, minority would have been voting because this one is a Fuller, all Fullers will vote for him. This one is a Syrian, all Syrians will vote for him. But he didn't do that. Although there are people in Senegal who did that, but majority didn't do that because they knew what was at stake for the country was much more a necessity to address than the idea of tribe. That's why they had the victory. Macky Sall was trying to play that card. That's why he chose a Fuller. To think that he's going to use, the tribe card to get, the victory. But people in Senegal knew, including Fullers, many of them, they're part of the people that made Sonko and his folks win. So it's going to be very wrong to point fingers of, tribalism to only Fullers. That will be an insult. But because their people know, and it's not to say there are Sereds and Jolas and Wolofs and Manjagos and Balantas and whatever who voted for Amadou Ba. who voted for Ahmadou Ba, disregarding what is at stake. Disregarding what is at stake, they still voted for Ahmadou Ba for a continuity of what is at stake. But majority had the thought of putting a stop. Dañoo banka buñ nangu mo continue ne su continue dafa uppa te lu uppa rek dafa tuuru te su tuuruwee dafa nekk coono dëkk bi yëpp at Senegal bi yëpp ñu ne did it. They said no. We spoke about Barrow 3 years, 5 years, 3 years, 5 years. Barrow would have been history. Barrow would have been history in 2021 if we did what Senegal did yesterday. If we did what Senegal did yesterday, Barrow would have been history. 3 years, 5 years would have been history. Honorable Salah was there, who is educated, knowledgeable, and knows. Could have been voted. And the idea of 3 years, 4 years, whatever nonsense, would have been history. I did it. Barrow was still voted because of nonsense, whatever it is. Even with, the inefficiency that he demonstrated during the course of the first 5 years. During the course of the first 5 years. And 2026, the same thing is going to happen again. The same thing is going to happen again. It's going to happen again. It's the same reason I said, I see people putting the Talib Bensouda agenda, the Talib bully. It's the same story I spoke about Esafal. It's the same story. Talib doesn't need to be president to do good for Gambia. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to be president to do well for Gambia. KMC is the richest municipality in the Gambia. KMC is the richest municipality in the Gambia. He could do well in KMC and support other regions to develop the Gambia. And that alone will be a guaranteed ticket for him to be president. For him to be president. Why come link Def at Esafal? Because he is eloquent. Nehlamin. Dangam CTRCB. He is the president. Nenkodef president. He's gonna be president. Real love Bopambi. Mufongne, he has all that. Lan lajil. Siganaw. Lan lajil. Siganaw. I told his Pato, I said he's going to get less than 30%. 30,000 votes. Less than 30,000 votes. I told him. He's going to get less than 30,000 votes. And that's what happened. I don't have to be president. I don't have to be president to do good for the Gambia, to contribute to the development of the Gambia. I don't have to be. Talib doesn't have to be president to contribute to the development of the Gambia. With KMC being the richest municipality and the biggest in terms of revenue, he could develop KMC to help develop BCC, to help develop NPR, Kerawan Area Council, to help develop Mansakonko Area Council. He could do that without the need of being, or the quest, or the rush of being president. Without the rush of being president. But because we Talib live in Orek, Mohala Shiu Tutirek, Neka president. Just like Esafal. And I'm going to say this. This is a video. I hope and pray that this account stays here until 2026. I'm going to say this. And it will be on record. If Talib is made a candidate, whether he stands independent or stands for the UDP, Barrow is going to win. And he's going to defeat Talib mercilessly. This is a video, and I am saying this. If Talib stands independent or stands for the UDP, represents the UDP as flag bearer, Barrow is going to defeat him mercilessly. And this is a video. You could keep this. You could download this video and you keep it. Someday you remember me for that. He is going to defeat Talib mercilessly. And in fact, I'm going to tell you this. Barrow is praying that Talib becomes the candidate. He's praying that Talib becomes the flag bearer. he's going to defeat Talib mercilessly. Mercilessly. So the idea of, ki hala siw tuti rek mu nekk president, dañ ko wara sani fale na le. We have to look at selfless service. There are many people in the Gambia who have demonstrated enough in terms of doing good for the country, who have demonstrated enough in terms of uplifting the lives and livelihood of people. Many of them. Those are the people who have got the wealth in knowledge and in finance of advancing national growth. Like when they are given the responsibility of leading the country, they've already got enough. They've already got enough in experience and finance. They will be concentrated in the development of the country. They will be concentrated in the development of the country. Not the one that is just starting. Not the one that is just starting. Sonko and Basiru, you talking about. These folks have worked for the government for several years and realized that there was a problem. And they thought that if they continue with the work, they won't be able to solve the problem. That is when they thought of making a change in the political landscape. Not just getting up like Namaneka president. Like the way Ismail Assise became president. Because he was arrested and he became, spoken about, then he is a candidate for presidency. Citizen Alliance is born and then he's a candidate. That is not how it is. That is not how it is. In the United States, they become governor, they become community leaders, they become senators, they become, mayors before they get to the quest of presidency. Barack Obama was a community leader in Chicago, became a senator before presidency. Donald Trump was an established businessman for several years before questing for presidency. Joe Biden spent all of his years in the Senate before questing going in for presidency. George Bush was governor. Bill Clinton was governor. But in the Gambia, nga siw tuti rek ñu ne president. Nga siw tuti rek ñu ne president. That's not how it works. Macky Sall was prime minister. Macky Sall was prime minister. So you don't ni siw tuti rek ñu ne president. Ñom Essa Fall, ñom Ismail Assise, all came out through that. The same for Talib. Siw tuti rek ne Talib for president. And I am telling you, so Talib president, he is going to be beaten. He is going to lose woefully. Woefully. There are many Gambians in the Gambia who have knowledge, experience, the knowledge and experience, and are comfortable, economically comfortable. Ñu xamne suñ nekké president, waw mané duñ saja suñu saja sa du bari. Ñu fa duñ jé. And there are plenty of them that could be selected as candidate for presidency and defeat Barrow. Suñu gina rek ñu ne hey diw sangam xam nañ ko moom moo fi defoon li ni moom moo contribute on pour ñu def fi electrical lighting of the community moom moo ñu jàppale pour ñu am ay pompe ndox moom moo tax tali bi ndox bi du dee topp taxaw fi ni moom moo ñu def ni he was the one that gave scholarships to the youth of this community and got them educated moom moo def lii moo def lii moo def lii su génnee rek ñu ne hey xam nañ ko. Because he or she has already established his or her name as a selfless citizen and has contributed to the development of the country. He or she is already economically comfortable. Why did it? Nit ki, del political office wala joko public office mu hala siw tuuti rek ñu ne president. Muhala siw tuuti rek president. Lolo mota Essa Fall, like he has destroyed the name that he could have got post TRRC and become whatever. Sufate on lik. Hanga Gambian, daf la dee dugal si loo xam ne soo demee ba duga foofu noonu ñu xam ne duga nga rek ñu bàyyi la rek puus table bi wala toogu bi rek nga ñëw daanu bu métti if Essa Faal was well calculated 2021 shouldn't have been on the cards for him. JL TRRC rek have his good name from the TRRC. Maybe get an ambassador job or get whatever job from government. Give it 10 years. Because he has already got his name. Ken duko fate. He has already got his name. Ken duko fate. So Mojoko 10 years. 10 years, go and get another, record. Develop himself. Serve Gambia. After the 10 years, like, Monyo, I did work at the TRRC and I did good for you at the TRRC. And from there, I went on to do good at this portfolio. Now, this experience that I gained from the TRRC, from all these places, I now want to come and, serve you for 5 years or for 10 years and then retire. That would be a huge welcome. I did it. Mohala siu tuti si TRRC birek ñu pusko ne president mo yaha the good name bum am si TRRC bi is all been wrapped and thrown in the pit latrine. Because dafa yakamti. Nyana ko yakamti lo Gambian. The same yakamti la ñoo def Talib. Because he had 5 years. 5 years as mayor, that he is president. And in fact, if you understand how government works and how administration works, like I collect revenue of 150,000 every year. Every year, collect revenue of 150,000. And the revenue I collect is from the taxes that people are paying. So the people are paying $10 every day. And that gives me 150,000 revenue every year. I come and I increase the $10 they are paying to $25. They paying $25 instead of $10. And then I got revenue of 300,000. In the person that doesn't, reason that very far, will say, oh, he got huge money. He brought 300,000 for it. But the person that reasons and tries to go through to see, will say, no, there is no difference. He got 300,000 because he increased the cost of the tax. That's why he got 300,000. And increasing the cost of the tax means increasing the economic hardship on the people. That's why he got 300,000. On in the level of doing good, it makes more sense to collect $10 and allow people live less economic hardship than collecting $25 from them, have 300,000 as revenue, and then subject them to more economic hardship. But people that don't understand will not. They will tell you that we have increased revenue generation, revenue collection. How was the revenue collection increased? How was it increased? And what is the effect, the direct effect of the revenue increase in the revenue collection? It's the same thing I have reservation for with the increase in taxation by government, by central government. But you don't increase our how will I call it? Our revenue on taxation. The US, in America, is the reason why people are going through a lot of difficulties because of high tax rate. You want to increase or better the socio-economic status of people by reducing expenditure. You reduce spending and increase the people's socio-economic status. Not by increasing taxes. You're asking people to pay more, and they pay more, whether they are directly paying more or the businesses are paying more. If the businesses are paying more, they will pay more because the businesses will increase the cost. The businesses will increase the cost. If the duty, the duty cost for importing rice is $10, and you increase it to $25, the person importing the rice will increase the same way you increase the tax. That person will the same way increase the cost of the rice. And if the reason why you increase the tax is to increase salaries, it makes no sense, because if you give them, if they were having 5,000 and buying rice for 1,200, you give them 7,000, and you increase the cost of tax that the person importing the rice is paying. He increases the rice from 1,200 to 2,500, and you give the salaried person 7,000. He goes to buy rice. The rice that he used to buy for 1,200 now buys it for 2,500. That 2,500 is buying the rice has exceeded the 2,000 you added to his salary. Has exceeded the 2,000 you added to his salary, because he was having 5,000. You added 2,000, making it 7,000. And he was buying rice for 1,200. The person selling the rice increased the price of the rice from 1,200 to 2,500. So he has exceeded the so-called increment you've added to them, which means there is no need for you to make the increment. But you could increase salary by cutting the spending of the office of the president, by cutting the spending of the Ministry of Trade, by cutting the spending of the Ministry of Tourism, by cutting the spending of the Ministry of Defense, by cutting the spending of the Ministry of local governments, by cutting the spending of the National Assembly. So you take 80,000 from National Assembly, 100,000 from Tourism Ministry, 1 million from the Office of the President, 200,000 from Ministry of Health. You accumulate all that and add it to what is available for the salaries, and you increase the salaries. You do that. You are not affecting the taxes that the person importing the rice is paying. And you are not increasing expenditure for the person you increasing the salary for, because the same amount he's going to buy rice for will be the same amount he's going to buy the rice, even with the increment. Even with the increment. So it makes sense to see that if 10 people were traveling with the president, now 5 will be traveling. The money that will be spent for the extra 5 will be taken and added to the money for the